All right. Well, hello and welcome to Coding with Jess, where you code along with me while I build a thing. Happy Wednesday to you, wherever you are on this great planet. And we're gonna jump into some stuff today. So I'm happy that you're joining me for this little ride. Um, for one, if you're new to Coding with Jess, it's been quite a while since I've done a live stream, and yeah, this is going to start being a weekly thing again, weekdays on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you'd like to get notified of like future streams, feel free to hit subscribe, and you'll get notified when new ones come in. And yeah, so this will be fun. Okay, so what are we working on today? Today we're going to be working on a little application called Mumbler, and Mumbler is a decentralized blogging tool. And why build a decentralized blogging tool, you might ask? Well, the main reason I'm building Mumbler is to learn about how decentralized applications work. So I've started working with a company called Fission that makes a library called WebNative. WebNative is a wrapper library around some decentralized tools that Fission makes and that other people make, IPFS, UCAN, which is an authentication framework, as well as some other like niceties. And the idea behind WebNative is to be a library that helps people to write decentralized applications. But I think where I've started with Mumbler is trying to understand what is the essence of a decentralized application. And this is really to try to get a strong mental model in my mind around the way that decentralized applications work, their architecture, their capabilities, how they differ from a centralized application. I feel like I have a really strong sense of that about centralized services. So things that are on the typical client server model, where you have a web client that accesses a server, um, and then as that accesses the server, they get the data pushed up to it. So I feel like I understand that kind of application very well. Been building those for several decades now, but I don't have the same intuition around decentralized applications. And frequently, when I'm diving in to do something in this space, I find myself to be surprised that you can do something, surprised that you can't do others. And so I'm trying to kind of develop that intuition around decentralized applications. And why decentralized applications? There's like a whole nother thing that we could explore around like why I think decentralization matters, why it makes software development better, why we're going to have to move in this direction anyway over the next 10 to 20 years because the direction the internet and technology in general is taking us. So that's a whole other talk slash series of blog posts slash developing theory. And so we'll get to those eventually. Today, we're actually going to do some work. So, all right, if you have ever been on Coding with Jess before or like watched me live stream before, you'll know that I live stream using Pomodoros. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Pomodoro application. I use one called Tomato from my good friend Wojto Rynek. So we'll start our first 25-minute, and this working block will be 4 Pomodoros, 4 25-minute blocks with 5-minute breaks in between, and I'll flash up like that when there's a break, so you'll know that I'm on a break, and you can come back in less than 5 minutes. And yes, this will be right around 2 hours. So let's go ahead and talk about where we are so far. So last week on Friday, which there's a stream, I guess I should probably like link to the previous stream, but there's a where I started building Mumbler from scratch. And what is Mumbler? So Mumbler right now is actually really, really simple. You can almost think of Mumbler as like a single source file at this point. Like it's such a simple application. And what it does is basically writes markdown files to the interplanetary file system, which is like a decentralized file store using the WebNative library. And right now it's about 85 lines of TypeScript and some HTML and CSS that will look really, really familiar. So CSS to style things up, an index.html site. I'm not using any frameworks or anything like that right now. I wanted to kind of explore using WebNative directly, except without the sort of overhead that a framework creates, just to kind of get a feeling for like what WebNative is doing for me versus what the framework is doing for me, and having to fiddle with all the sort of like framework integration type stuff. Other thing you should know is that I am not an expert in TypeScript. So this is, I am currently in the process of like learning TypeScript myself. And so there'll probably be times on this stream where I frustratingly fuddle with different types as I flail at the TypeScript compiler to try and get it to do what I want. So something I'm learning. So what is Mumbler right now? It's this tiny little application. You can actually go grab, if you search my GitHub for Mumbler, M-U-M-B-L-R, you'll find this repo and you can go ahead and grab it locally. Let me show you what it does. So if I hit npm run dev, that's going to start up Vite and a local server. And Mumbler looks like this. It is a title, a body, and the opportunity to publish something. This little logout button got jammed up here at the last minute last week. If you remember in the stream, there were some problems with credentials and things like that that made me need to add that. We're going to style that into the site and make it look nice at some point. But that's what it does. And then I mentioned that it writes things to the interplanetary file system. So right now, this Fission Drive application is sort of a wrapper. Think of it as like Google Drive or Dropbox wrapping the IPFS like file store, this interplanetary file store. It makes it look like a file system for you, which is nice. And Drive itself is written in WebNative, so if you wanted to see a more sophisticated WebNative application, you could go and check out the GitHub repo for that. It is open source. Fission Drive, WebNative. There we go, Fission Suite. So yeah, go check out Fission Drive. I'm going to mainly use it as a debugging tool. It's really, really handy for that specific thing. So this is my drive, Jess Martin Fission. And if you go into public posts, you'll see that there are 2 posts there. And what Mumbler does right now is allows me to write things into this directory. So in like Web 2 land, if you want to like ignore decentralization for a second, what you could think of this is, think of it as like I'm writing a front-end application that's backed by Dropbox. It has no back-end, like no server or anything, but it has a front-end interface that looks like this. And when you hit the publish button, it saves a file to Dropbox for you using some front-end JavaScript library. That's more or less the way to think about it. It's actually way more interesting than that underneath the hood in terms of like the way that I have a private key that allows me to save this file, and these are actually my files, and we're going to kind of explore this web architecture together. In fact, I'm going to come to the whiteboard in a second and kind of like map things out for my own understanding to kind of remember where we are, and then talk about what we're doing today. All right, so let me show you Mumbler in action just to prove that it works. Notice that I'm on localhost right now. One of the things that we're going to need to do today is actually host Mumbler somewhere. So I'm going to like add that to my to-do list. Just as a side, like this is kind of like a list that you'll see me bringing up constantly throughout the work session, just to kind of keep track of here's the things that I need to be thinking about. So let's see, deploy Mumbler somewhere on the webs. So yeah, so that we're not having to work off localhost. And it'll be interesting to see, is there any like wrinkle that comes up when deploying Mumbler? And let me see, I'm going to close that out. Okay, so Mumbler. All right, some post on a Wednesday afternoon. Well, technically it's not afternoon, it's morning. It's 11 a.m. here in Fuquay Arena, North Carolina. Some text in this post. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and hit publish. Hopefully everything works. Yes. Okay, so I've got, I have like WebNative debug statements turned on. This little line right here enables some nice little debug statements. And what you can see here is I've got logged in, I attempted to save the file was successfully saved, and the file system was published. Now here's one of those really weird wrinkles that's actually pretty cool, is that when you save a file in WebNative, you're actually saving it to your local copy of IPFS. Like this works like Git is the way to think about it. It's like you have this local repository that you're writing to, and then you have to actually publish those changes to the sort of I was going to say global IPFS, but the IPFS network, like propagate those changes throughout the network. So that's what this file system publish does. And then once I publish the file system, you get the a content ID address right here, which is like a canonical address. It's where this thing always lives. I can always look it up by this CID. The DNS link, this basically is updating the gateways, I won't go into all the details around this, but basically it allows me to like use this SID to find that file on the network. And so now if we go back over to Fission posts, I'm gonna hit refresh, and there it is. Cool, some post on a Wednesday morning. And again, like I said, Fission Drive, excellent little debugging tool for like seeing, did stuff get written to my file system when I expected it to, that kind of stuff. You can see there's the some text in the post. So we now have this little front end that writes markdown files for me, and then stores them in IPFS in my own sort of data store there. Pretty interesting. So, and what's even more interesting is that this is like a tiny little program. There's this right here is basically initialization of initializing WebNative. And I could walk through each line of code. If you want to know what each kind of line of code does in here, I refer you to like the live stream from Friday, which I'll link to in the show notes here. So you can go watch me kind of build this out. Or you can go to the Fission docs, Fission WebNative docs. If I could spell, but I'm sure it'll correct it for me. Yep. This will walk you through kind of like what each one of those lines does. Interested in explaining it, but I want to make sure we make enough progress forward today, so I'm not going to go through each one of these lines. But basically initializes, checks whether you're logged in or not, does the appropriate thing around login, and then the entire web application, like the application logic, is like all here in these 50 lines. And all it does is basically say, if this button is clicked, this button right here is clicked, then open up, then like write to the file system and publish it, which is pretty nifty. There's a lot of things I want to do to make Mumbler better, but my goal today, is get an end-to-end setup working, where we can write a blog post in Mumbler, like we just did, a blog post in Mumbler, and then view that blog post in an HTML page on the web somewhere. Now, obviously, we can view it right now in Fission Drive, but that is my personal drive. I'm not going to give out my credentials to other people. What I'm looking at building is something similar to Linus Lee's Stream website, where you just have this sequence of sites or another inspiration point, or sequence of posts, sorry. Another inspiration would be Tumblr itself, right? Where you have a tumble log, which is just these post after post after post after post. I'm not planning on using multimedia right now, so it'll just be HTML generated from Markdown, but I want to build one of these. So that's what we're going to work on today. Okay, so before we jump into writing some actual code, let's map out on the whiteboard kind of what we built so far and how that's gonna play out. So, all right, so Mumbler is our little application up here, a little front end only application, and it's got a title box and some text, and then a big publish button. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting things we could do with this application because of the way it's structured that I've been thinking about. But anyway, you write some markdown in there, and then this writes to, there we go, our big the internet cloud. This is like living in your browser. Front end app living in the browser. All right, and then on the internet, this thing writes to, best way that I can draw it right now is sort of like the IPFS network. The IPFS network just being other people's computers, right? They all have drive space that they're lending to the IPFS network. And then this network operates a lot like BitTorrent or something like that, where basically the files are distributed across this network and they're available. So Mumbler writes this markdown file there. So we've got our little markdown file .md. And then what we want to do is on the other side of things, we would love, and this is like the author, author, and then we want a reader, a blog reader person. And this person should be able to access a website blog.com, whatever it is. And then this has the different posts. And these should get generated. This HTML, CSS, whatever, should get generated from these markdown files. So what we're going to write today is a static site generator. That takes these markdown files and generates HTML and CSS. CSS, markdown. Now we looked at this a little bit on Friday of last week, and probably the quote-unquote right way to do this would be to, if you wanted this to be like a sustainable long-term thing, the right way to do this would probably be use something like Gatsby. I mean, there are dozens of these SSGs already in existence. Why do we need to write a new one, right? But I'm kind of taking the same tack here that I took with writing Mumbler. If Mumbler turns out to be something that I use long-term, I'll probably port Mumbler to using something like Svelte or React or Vue, like a framework. We'll rewrite the code inside of a framework at some point. I wanted to get like the simplest possible thing. And in trying to interact with the WebNative library directly, I wanted the ergonomics of those interactions to not be governed at all by a framework. And I'm kind of taking the same approach here with SSGs of like, I want to know what it's like to fetch files from the IPFS in JavaScript and then generate the HTML and CSS without being bound or confined by the framework of the SSG. So I'm not going to use Gatsby or anything. We're actually going to, this is what the main thing we're going to be working on today, is writing our own tiny little custom SSG that generates this HTML and CSS, and then getting that up somewhere. And then if it turns out that that is something that's useful, that's like, now that I understand the problem a little better, we may go back and replace this with something like Gatsby. I think they're called source plugins. I was looking into these a little bit last Friday, and I've looked into them before for other uses. So eventually we'll like go here, but right now let's just get something up and running. Now, one interesting side effect before we start building that I wanted to call to attention is once I finished building the SSG, once I finished building, this little Mumbler thing, I realized, and I looked in Drive. Drive has these neat little like features that allow you to like do things like create a file. Like, oh, what's this? Add, create. Wow, I can just add or create a post right here. I can even like pull it from my local, I can make it markdown, or I can pull a file from my local directories here. And so one interesting side effect here is that Mumbler, yes, writes to the IPFS and to this specific directory, but I, as a user, own the directory where this is stored. So this is getting stored in, Jess, Martin, Fission /public/posts. That's where my files are getting stored. And so this application writes to this directory, but lots of applications could ask for permission to write this directory. In fact, and the other one that writes there right now is Drive that we just looked at. Drive can write to this directory as well. And I could build like a little syncing tool that syncs like a local directory on my local machine to that directory. And that could be another thing that writes there. I could do all kinds of things to sort of upload files to this particular thing. And when I do that, all of those files, no matter which application front end wrote them, will get compiled by this SSG into this blog. And so the big aha moment that I'm slowly like sinking in around decentralized applications is that a decentralized application architecture separates application from data. And this is kind of a big deal because in a lot of the ways that we think about software, when we think about Google Drive or Excel or whatever, we think about the data alongside the application. Like we don't separate the two. We don't even separate the two, actually. We think of this Excel spreadsheet as being part of Excel, right? It is separate in that you can pass it around, but this is a really powerful idea, especially in the age of sort of cloud applications, which, yes, we had the idea of sort of files 20 years ago, well, a lot longer than that in terms of when we started, but 20 years ago, it would have been normal for an application to create files, save those files, and then pass those files around. And you might even have had the ability to open those files in multiple applications. But in terms of cloud infrastructure, this is a very unusual thing, right? Most of the applications that you use on the interwebs, let's say Gmail or Google Calendar or anything you're using, really, that application that you're using, the data is hidden sort of inside of that application, and you can't easily separate it. And not only that, but to get the data, you have to ask the application's permission. You have to say, hey, application, can I have my file? Because you own it, you control it, you have it. Like Twitter has my social graph, Facebook has all my list of friends, like LinkedIn has all of my profile information. LinkedIn has it. I don't have it, they have it. They have the data. With this decentralized application, this is actually my repository. Like I own this, I have the private key to this, and then I give this application permission to write into that. Or I give this application, Fission Drive, permission to write into that. This separation of application from data and then this ownership, the like user-owned data, allows you to write applications in a really radically different way. And so anyway, let's look at building it. I think enough preamble. Alrighty. Hey, Jeremy. It's good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping in. And Steve as well. Good to see you, man. Alternatively, Steve says, alternatively, instead of an SSG, you could make a separate WebNative app that loads a public file system of a given user and renders the posts. Yes. So I've been debating like how to build this. Oh my goodness. Have I not had the whiteboard up the whole time? Blooper number 1. Welcome to the whiteboard. I've been writing on it and you haven't been seeing it. Let me walk through real quick because I have no idea how long this whiteboard has been blank. What is on the whiteboard and all the things that I've been saying as I've been gesticulating wildly into the air. Geez. All right. Anyway, so the basically what I was saying is, you know, we got Mumbler right into the IPFS network. IPFS network is going to be reading, or this little SSG is going to read from the IPFS network and then generate some HTML and CSS. So, and I was eventually saying that we could replace that with like Gatsby source. And what Steve was saying, Stephen was saying, is that we could build a WebNative application. And this little WebNative application could use the WebNative library to read from any user's public IPFS and then render this blog. The advantage that would have is, well, the way that I'm building my SSG, I'm planning to drop below the WebNative layer and use use some libraries that interact with IPFS directly, a JavaScript library that interacts. That may turn out to be a terrible idea, and we'll find out shortly. I may go come crawling back to the WebNative library and be like, oh, please wrap the IPFS and like take away all the pain so that I can access these files more easily. And that might be kind of how we do this. There's some unsolved problems here too, like how to trigger a build of the SSG based on changes to this directory. My understanding is that sort of cron or like triggering type stuff in the IPFS world is an unsolved problem, but we're going to work on, like I mentioned, goal today is get an end-to-end setup working. Write a blog post in Mumbler, view that blog post in an HTML, and we're going to do it the simplest, as my friend Justin Gatlin used to say, we're going to do it the simplest freaking thing that works. And then we will look at making it right. Make it work, make it right, make it fast. Okay, so let's see how much time we have left. We got 3 minutes left in this Pomodoro. Again, apologies for talking in front of the whiteboard for a good 10 minutes without showing you what was on the whiteboard. Yeah, you know, I'm a little rusty. Haven't done this in a little bit. All right, so our Mumbler, I'm gonna go ahead and close the Mumbler code base down. We don't need that right now. We don't need this or even that. We do need to create, so there's my Mumbler. I've got all my codes stored here in documents code, so I'll back up a directory, and my plan is to make a really simple TypeScript application to do this, and use TypeScript to, with the JavaScript library. See, this might be where things go awry, but let's go look at the library that I was thinking about running. So IPFS JS library. See, the thing is, I don't actually want the full IPFS. I don't need to run an IPFS node. I need to read from, what I'd like to do is read from an IPFS gateway. And that's a crucial distinction here, is like, there's the IPFS network, which communicates over this other protocol. I guess it's the IPFS protocol. There might be an actual name for the protocol that I'm not aware of. But anyway, there's a protocol here but there's also an HTTP gateway. And what I'm planning on doing is having this SSG read from the HTTP gateway, which is reading from the IPFS network. And that's a crucial distinction because I don't need anything other than HTTP in this JS library. Fetch file from IPFS JavaScript. I had a nice page for this that I probably didn't save on Friday, so let's jump in. JS IPFS fetch. This was not the same thing. Use the same fetch API browsers provide for HTTP. That might do it, because all we need is like a simple get. There is a wrinkle here in that what we're probably gonna do with our SSG is we're going to configure it with the CID of a directory, right? Of like, here's a directory that stores some that has some markdown files in it. Here's this, and then we need to like list the contents of that directory, which I'm not sure how to do. We'll figure that out. And then once we've listed the contents, we'll grab each of those markdown files and then process them into HTML and CSS. This actually might work. Oh, cool. So it will give me a directory listing. Fetch API. Okay. We are at the end of our first 25-minute Pomodoro. So I'm going to take a quick break here for 5 minutes, and then we will be back at the end of this Pomodoro, and we'll jump right back into where we were, see if we can make this thing work. Alrighty, Pomodoro break is coming to an end here. Hit start tomato for one more 25-minute session. All right, let me close my door actually. Okie dokie. So, was chatting with Steven, who knows way more about IPFS than I do, in the chat, and he was agreeing that JS IPFS fetch might be a worthwhile thing to try. Reading through the docs, like it kind of looks like it might work. And so, yeah, I think it's worth giving it a try. Unfortunately, some of his documentation for this library is in this intro video, which, golly day, can you just write it down? It's funny that I do a lot of work on video, but I hate watching video for the purpose of like learning stuff, which is an irony of me doing this live stream right now. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna create a new TypeScript application, and I had a little shortcut for creating one of these. TypeScript, my own boilerplate, and unfortunately I think I made it a web-based starter, but it might work the same way. Let me see. Package JSON. Yeah, I think this will work okay. So let me grab this, even though we're not going to use the web portion of that. So let's go over to my iTerm, git clone that. Ah, yeah, it already exists. Well, I might have web starter. Oh, right, I want to clone it into a different directory. This will be, we'll call it Mumbler. I already created the Mumbler generator, which I'm going to remove now. Mumbler. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. Remove Mumbler generator. That's the one that I worked on last Friday. And then we're going to do a git clone into a new Mumbler generator. CD into that directory. Open that up in VS Code. And let's see. All right, here's our TypeScript application. To TypeScript. Or yeah, there we go. Yikes, VS Code's running super slow. What do I have? Might be that I noticed this last Friday that OBS has been starting to take more and more system resources, so I may eventually move my streaming setup off of this machine and onto a separate machine. That's a whole other like thing that I'll have to go do in the future. We're not going to do that right now. I don't need the web dev server, so I'm going to kill that, and we'll make this run. And I'm going to kill those two things, and this is going to be called Mumbler generator, and change that, simple static site generator for Mumbler. Yeah, sure, why not? And it'll run app.ts, which should be fine. Interestingly, we do want to render some public. We are going to want to render an interesting. So this could be actually useful. We are going to the end output of this little static site generator. Right now, I'm not going to handle pagination. I'm not going to do anything fancy. It's just like literally, here's the website, and here are all of the posts rendered as HTML. Like that's our goal for today. And right now, we do have this very simple HTML and CSS here that we could use to basically as the shell to inject our posts into. So this actually might turn out to be useful. And if you look at my TypeScript that I've got here, the application right now, all it does is generate a it puts like hello TypeScript inside this world. So like actually let me show you. Let's see. So npm run ts, I think is what I had it. Oh, I renamed it to run because that's real clever. Npm run. Oh, right. Okay, so we just, I use ASDF for version management, and I need to do ASDF list Node.js. I need to say ASDF local Node.js is 1780, and that will create a .tool versions file. And then I usually cd back out and jump back into the directory because I'm not sure if ASDF is smart enough to pick up a new one. I'm sure it is, but it makes me feel better to do that. The other thing I want to do here is we want to remove the Git directory because this is going to be a new, we want to do git init, and this is going to be a new Git directory, right? We don't want the, it was linked to that TS TypeScript starter, web starter thing. So, okay. So now I should be able to do an npm install. It should be really, really fast because TypeScript is literally the only library that we're using, and npm run, which we'll change that in a second, which should... Okay, that's kind of silly. So not exactly what we want, but kind of interesting, right? So what happened there? When we compiled app.ts, it compiled it into some JavaScript that the TypeScript compiler turned it into some JavaScript, which we then wrote to this JS directory, app.js, so that when I open this index.html file, like if I did, for example, npx or cd public, and npx is like a way to use a node package without installing it, or without adding it to your npm script. If I run serve and like do localhost, you'll see this works now, but we're not going to want it to work that way. We're not going to want every single time to run this TypeScript once the application runs. So what we need to do is generate the JS and then run the JS is basically what the command that we're going to want to do. And it looks like TypeScript tsc-w writes to public JS by default, I guess, or maybe I have that specified in TypeScript config. Yep, root directory is source. No, that's the root directory where it's stored, and then the outer. Yup. Okay, so we're not going to want to write that to public because basically all we're going to want in public, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this right here, move to trash. All we're going to want in public is a single index.html file that has right here HTML for posts should go here. So we want to insert them in here. And yeah, thinking about how this is going to work exactly. So a TypeScript file is going to run locally as like a node application, or like a we're going to basically we're going to execute that JavaScript using Node. That's my understanding of the way that works. Haven't done a lot of like server-side JavaScript / using JavaScript on my computer as a scripting language. Mostly I use Ruby for that. But anyway, it'll run this JavaScript application, which will then, the JavaScript script, which will then open index.html. And what would be really nice is to have this sort of document have all of the web functionality, but this is all the browser that provides these APIs. And so we're gonna have to like grab a separate package that will parse HTML and yada yada yada. So yeah, there's some weirdness about the way this function is going to work. So but we're at a point where we have this, like the first version of this up. Let's go ahead and we've got our source file. We've got JS is there again. Why are you there again? I just deleted you. Is it running or something? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, stop that from running. Our npm package JSON thing is wrong. So this is gonna, let's make a couple changes and then do an initial commit and create a repository on GitHub so we can get this off of our local machine and start checking stuff in. And that way y'all can see it as well from your wherever you may be. So we're not going to do public JavaScript. I don't know. out/JavaScript. New folder. Out. And the reason for that, why did I do that? The reason for that is that what I'm planning to do to actually deploy this single site generator, this static site generator, is actually push this whole repository to like Netlify and point it at the public directory. And so I don't want the JavaScript to get loaded in that process. The JavaScript that is going to, again, JavaScript's only going to run on a local machine to populate that index.html file. So I want to store that in a separate directory. I think we'll find out. My mental model around this might be wrong. Okay, so now, and then the thing with the package JSON TSC, I wonder if what that option -w is. Man TSC? Nope. TSC -help. What? We just did that. We have our tool versions file, right? Yeah, I already specified the version. I already did that, you goose. What? All right, so, oh, I know, npm run TSC. I have to like say, I'm doing this inside of the npm. Maybe? npm exec? npm Jess fuddle with npm? Haha! Wahaha! It did what I wanted. So npm exec TSC, so that basically said run the TypeScript compiler within the thing. But why I was running it is so I could do help, not yeah, so -w is workspace. I would have expected that to be like watch or something. Interesting. Like I don't know what is going on well enough to understand why npm run like continues to run this. Like, wouldn't this just run one time? But it doesn't seem to. It seems to like be watching by default, right? See, like, look at this. Waiting for file change, watching for file changes. Where is that coming from? Like, why is it doing that? Well, let me see. If I run exec tash no workspace found. Whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. So npm exec TSC does what I expect. For whatever reason, npm does some fanciness through this package.json that I don't fully understand, and frankly is incidental to what we're currently exploring. So I'm not going to get sucked down that rabbit hole. Let's go to our git ignore and add the out directory. We also don't want to store out. Probably don't need it in out.js, but whatever. I put it there anyway. We don't need no modules. We definitely need public. We're not going to have a public JS file. Whoops. Hey. We're not going to have a public JS file because we're not going to render that. Everything else looks okay. I might be able to use this index.html as kind of like our index that we'll grab and then insert stuff here. So it depends on what library we use to locally manipulate HTML. Honestly, the best libraries for that are the frickin' browser itself, which has all those nice DOM tools for me, but I'm not going to have access to those, at least as far as I understand it. Although there's probably some way to like hoodwink like JavaScript locally into like running a headless browser to do it, but that's probably more complication than we need. Yes. Last thing to do before we check in is delete that README and replace it with a real one. Generate a simple blog from a set of markdown files stored in IPFS. Okay, I think that's enough for now to actually do the initial check-in. I haven't created a repo yet, so we're going to go do that really fast. Create new repository. This will be called Mumbler Generator. it will be public. Let me grab the same line from the README that we just used. Back over here. And nope, I don't want to add anything. I just want to create it. Everything looks good here. We're going to do git add dot initial commit. And set the branch, set all those things, and push. This should refresh. Boom. All right, we got our initial commit up and running. We now have a simple TypeScript application that we can start doing some stuff with. Oh, the one thing we didn't figure out is how to execute the JavaScript that we want to execute locally. So I assume that that will be like npm exec node out /js /app.js. Need to install the following packages. Yes, I guess. Is node not the executable for Node.js? Node -- version? No, that is. What if I execute it without the npm exec in front? Npm node out js app.js. It did a thing. Cool. That's what we expect, right? We just talked about how running this code in outside of the browser does not work because you do not have access to the DOM. So document dot don't do nothing. And so what we could do here is just say, hold on. Don't edit the JavaScript directly. You edit the TypeScript, you big goose. All right, so console log hello world would be, and then we'll run npm exec tsc, and then we'll run it, and we get hello world. All right, so it's working. Am I crazy that it seems circular that I did? So this would, I think this would be something along the lines of do that and then run node out /js /app.js. And let's see what happens. npm run. Again, need to change that the name of that script. Maybe if I may change a file here. Hello worlds. Huh. Maybe it's eating console.log somehow, somewhere. I don't know. I still don't understand why this thing does watching by default. Whatever. We have a path that we can, where we can get things running. Well, I guess I could drop the -w and see if that makes a difference. Ha ha! Whoa! Well, all right. Let's make it something better than run. Generate, because you're a static site generator. Man, learning me all kinds of nodes. Fix the package .json. Alrighty. Write that out. Push that up. Okay, that took a few minutes, but we have our basic little package here. So let's go look at what we wanted to do, which is IPFS fetch some stuff. One of the things I love about Drive, not Google Drive, there's basically nothing I love about Google Drive, but one of the things I love about Fission Drive is that it gives me like the CID of a directory just by like right-clicking on it. So again, excellent debugging tool. If I right-click on this, I can go copy the CID, and that is look up IPFS file by CID. I wonder if it'll let me, I think I found a website that does this. IPFSsearch.com. I don't think this works by CID. I think there's a like view in gateway or something like that. Oh, I think it maybe only been for files. Linked file. Yeah, there we go. That's so crazy. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's not by, I know there's a way to do it by CID. Anyway, handy tool in Fission Drive. We'll use that to get our CID. And I was thinking, what I was telling Steven in chat is that I think the way that this little guy is going to work is that the only thing that you need to set, the only config, we'll have like a config variable where you config the CID of the directory, and then other people can run this same static site generator. They just need to specify the CID of the directory that they want to load the markdown files from. Maybe. Thinking maybe that might be it. All right, so const fetch, let's see. Let's go ahead and grab, whoa. The directory's called, or this library is called Ipfs. What? Yeah, I didn't think so. Oh, I see. On NPM, it's called JS IPFS fetch. They called it IPFS locally. That's fine. So we'll do, let me close these. Let's do an install of JS IPFS fetch. Should see it get added right here. Hopefully this thing works in TypeScript. TypeScript? Doesn't talk about it. I guess we're gonna find out. Const top level of the module explores a function to create an instance of IPS fetch. So let's go over here to our TypeScript. Move this over here to the right. That way we can see these minimal docs here. If you specify a URL for a file, it will be loaded from IPS and the content will be saved. If you specify a URL for a folder, the folder will be enumerated from IPS and an HTML page listing its various files will be rendered. Wait a second. We don't actually want this. Oh, is this a dang browser-based thing as well? Like I want like a node, something that runs from, conforms to the web API. Yeah, so this is not gonna be what we want, Stephen. I'll need both. Stephen in chat says JS IPFS fetch uses JS IPFS internally, so you need both. But I would assume that it would be a dependency, and it would grab it for me. Like yeah, pretty easy to check. JS IPFS fetch. Wait a second, I don't see JS IPFS fetch here. But my point is, from looking at these docs, this is not exactly what we want because it is assuming that this is loaded within a browser environment. And I should have picked up on that, I guess, because it says right here, use the same fetch API that browsers provide, but we want like fetch in like a node application. I don't know. I might try this anyway, just because we're already going down this path and see what happens. And it should be fairly easy to see what happens, or to just see. But I think I'm about to blunder into something. Steven says there's the application JSON header you could pass. That's true. So I might be able to like say bring back the result in terms of JSON, and then we could parse the JSON to get the list of things that we want. I think the thing that has me weirded out is an HTML page listing its various files will be rendered. Yeah, well, we'll see. See what happens. That doesn't feel right. Something smells fishy right now. So apt.ts, we now have, I'm going to leave the console log in here just because it's handy for debugging purposes. We can grab IPFS locally. Oh, I see what he's saying. Steven's saying that this IPFS is different from this IPFS fetch. I didn't read the very next line of the docs. So why would I need, oh, it uses JS IPFS locally. Sure. This is like an awkward, make one from IPFS. shouldn't that be IPFS? If I made the variable called IPFS? Ah, rats. Alrighty. Well, we're going to see if this will work. We have 5-minute break going. I'm going to respect the Pomodoro. Take a 5-minute break real quick. Feel free to take a break if you would like as well. And we'll come back and try to use this JS IPFS fetch library to fetch the list of files and then grab them locally and see if we can transform them into HTML. And we have 2 Pomodoros remaining in this work session. So 1 hour left, or 50 minutes left, I guess, when we get back from this break. But yeah, I think we can maybe get this up and running. It'll be close, but I think we can do it. 2 more Pomodoros. See you guys in a minute. All right, welcome back to the stream. We are now midway through our 4 Pomodoros. We've done 2 Pomodoros of work so far, and we are making some good progress, I think. And so pop up the desktop and start our next Pomodoro and dig right in. So we are at a point where we have the IPFS thing. We're using JS IPFS fetch to try and fetch files from the interplanetary file system and parse them locally. So let's jump in and see if we can actually get it working. So here's the just using their stuff. I might actually do we'll do a directory to begin with. So we got the IPFS SID, like I was talking about. We can grab that from drive, which apparently I closed, drive.fission.codes. We're going to want to grab public posts. Oh, we went too far. Posts, right click, copy the SID, paste that here. And then it's complaining to me about cannot redeclare block variable fetch. Fetch was also declared here in the DOM. That's weird. Fetch was also declared in the DOM. And I thought I had TS properly configured to do top level awaits. Like I may have the wrong TS config file here to do top level awaits. Let's see, it says I need to do ES2022. Actually, let me jump over to I had this set up properly in Mumbler. I had to mess with TS config. Again, not a TypeScript expert, to get everything working. What I really want to do is just use this TypeScript config. And then the only thing we want to change. Oh, and we don't want DOM. Okay, so maybe that's why this is failing. Fetch is also declared in libdom.typescript. Okay, cool. Well, I discovered 2 things here. So pasting this in, we want I do want to save the outdir. So I need to come back and say, let's delete the DOM lib. Although maybe we could use the DOM lib to do something cool. I don't know. But to do like the thing I was talking about inserting the HTML. But and then we want outdir to be out.js or out/js. Because you're trying to override the default fetch. So we may continue to have problems with fetch. Nope, everything good now. Console log. The console provides a simple blah blah. No, come on now. Oh, because it's console log. And then const. Why are you complaining about const? Add an export. Gosh, TypeScript. Why you hate me so much? So yeah, we don't have access to console log because that is logging out to that is a DOM thing. And isolated modules because it's considered a global script file. So maybe I need to change that too in the TypeScript config. Let's see, comment that out. There we go. Still won't let me do top level awaits. Galley day. Module resolution is node. Well, let me see what the other recommendation here is, and then we may have to go search this TS1208. I swear, man, most of my time with TypeScript so far, the frustrations have been fighting the compiler, and I'm sure that it's because my brain is oh wait, these requires, this is the old way of doing things, right? We want the new way of doing things, we want to do what am I saying here? ES module imports. As opposed to, I guess this is the, can't remember what the require format is. So let me see. Const. So let's try to transform these. It would be import IPFS from IPFS. But I don't know that we have IPFS locally. Again, that IPFS thing's kind of throwing me for a loop here. Do we actually need JS IPFS here? Because it wasn't specified that we did, but Steven thinks we do. And the other thing was, so it could be that these docs suck for this, or it's part of the intro video. Oh God, must I watch the intro video? Surely dude has like an example. All right, well, one more try before watching the intro video. Maybe he has an example JS IPFS fetch application. Oh, this guy's all into DAT and other decentralized distributed systems. All right, intro video it is. Sigh. Let's see. All right, well, let me make sure that that's what I should be spending the time on here. Close these down, open app.js, or app.ts, sorry. This. Shouldn't that be that? And then, let's just try this real quick before we watch their intro video. JS IPFS. We're going to add that. And then package JSON, there it is. Now import there. All right. How do you require JS IPFS? Getting started. What? IPFS.create. Confusion. There's no require here. JS IPFS. Docs. Just give me the docs. Give me the dang docs. All right. Feel like I'm getting started. JS IPFS to full implementation, yada, yada, yada. Controls an IPFS node. That's not what I want. I don't understand why I would need JS IPFS, though. That doesn't make sense. JS IPFS is again, a full implementation of IPFS. Like, I just need, well, I guess I need something that speaks the IPFS protocol, assuming that this library actually operates over the IPFS protocol as opposed to over HTTP, and then it basically rewrites. Yeah, of course it worked. Duh. That should have been my first clue right there. Okay, so this, I'm going to step away from this library for a second. And the reasoning is, I think this, I saw on Friday, and I'm going to have to go see if I can find it now, a way to do this that I think works better. Well, okay. I saw on Friday something that would allow me to use a the IPFS HTTP gateway and use HTTP and more directly as opposed to the IPFS protocol. I'm trying to think if there are any downsides to that. I noticed that Steve says in chat that it's called IPFS instead of JS IPFS on NPM, because of course it is. And I wonder, yeah, that when I saw it in package JSON, that looks suspiciously like a wrong version number. So I'll just try one more time to get IPFS fetch working using that, and then I'm going to go look. There was another library that I came across that I think might do it for us. So, all right. Stumbling through the IPFS ecosystem. That's why you guys join this stream, and then watch me flail at TypeScript. I did warn you, if you were here at the beginning, that I would be flailing at TypeScript. Yeah, now that feels like it's chugga installing IPFS. That feels about the right size for the JS IPFS library, because that's running a full implementation of an IPFS node inside your browser, is like my simple way of understanding it. All right, so it looks like all this stuff's getting installed. Again, that would be all right. Steve says the HTTP client he suggested above is way easier to use. I'm going to go see if I can. Huh. Steve, you'll have to repost a link to the HTTP client, because I'm scrolling up to the chat. I'm not seeing it. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I want, is like an HTTP client version of this, because like, my goodness, feels like a really heavy lift to be running an IPFS, to grab JS IPFS, run an entire IPFS node, to use the IPFS protocol, to grab a simple file, when you could just grab it through an HTTP gateway. Like that, we have like really, really good tooling for HTTP. And so it feels like starting there would make a lot more sense. But yeah, it's what's amazing to me is Googling this on Friday, I came across no like simple, guide to fetching files from IPFS. Then you do this, then you do this. And like, it's amazing that there's not that documentation out there. There was a couple like not well-written guide type things out there, but anyway. All right, back over to Visual Studio Code. We have IPFS library. Okay, so this should work. Calculating forever. Make. Holy smokes. Why is this taking so long? Something. So TypeScript down here is like, uh-oh. Says I have a good connection. Not sure what's taken so long there. I'm gonna close that and see if it crashed. Let's go ahead and deactivate Copilot for a second. What's going on here? Activity monitor. Oh. IPFS has begun and is taking over my machine. Okay, why? Oh, it seems like I did run IPFS. Seems like I was fiddling around with stuff on Friday, and I did run IPFS locally. And by the way, that was network, not CPU. So I definitely want to stop IPFS, which I think I installed this. And again, this is actual IPFS node. I started running this on Friday and have totally forgotten that I am volunteering myself to be an IPFS node on this peer of IPFS networks while I'm streaming. I was wondering why it kept telling me that my connection was excellent, but your bitrate was a bit low. Anyway, let's go see if we can stop IPFS. Please don't do that. And that should take just a second here. You can see OBS 64 is like the main thing. It's chewing away at my processor. So yeah, I'll probably need to like set up a more sophisticated thing. It looks like we're back here though. Whoops, undo that. Delete that. Whoa, everything compiled. It's kind of surprising. Okay, quit over here, brew info, brew services, stop IPFS. Is I think what I want. Stop IPFS. Successfully stopped. Okay, great. Woo! Yeah, let's go look at the network. Cool. IPFS is not like totally dominating my network anymore. Whoopsies. Be careful when you run a distributed file system daemon on your local machine. What you might run into. Fun times. Okay, so back here. Looks like everything ran here, which is kind of wild. What I'd love to do is actually print out the const.txt, but unfortunately I can't do console.log because I can do console.log, and I'm totally making that up that I can't do console.log. And I also feel weird about like mixing imports here, but I'm just trying to get this running for right now, and then we can see if we want to revert to IPFS HTTP client, which Steven says is going to be a better way forward. In fact, yes, and the answer is, Steven, your links are being stripped out, which stinks, and may make me want to switch to like, yes, this one. This is the one I saw on Friday. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my gosh, look at these docs. It doesn't say just go watch my video. Yeah, we're gonna use this. We're definitely gonna use this. Yeah, this is the one I saw on Friday, and it seems to be a much better fit for what we're looking for. I don't know why I didn't turn up this morning. I think it's because I was inserting fetch in the actual Google search this morning, which Google searching fail. Okay, and look at that blue little square. Yay! It's TypeScript compatible. Okay, I kind of want to see what this does just to run it. So let's see, npm run generate, and then like we can backpedal away from running all of IPFS in here. Odd. Did it not actually write? Did I not set the right outdir? That's possible. App ts out ts config set to out /js. Let's do a quick diff of ts config, and I'm gonna make sure that I actually ./out.js. Okay, let's do that. Good with that. ./out.js. And quit. Clear that, and then we'll try one more time here. No? Okay. Not running the way I expected to. npm run tsc. Exec tsc, that's right. Okay. npm exec tsc, which should write out the JavaScript. Okay, now I'm really confused. So this console, this JavaScript or TypeScript file is no longer getting compiled. Include source. What if I run tsc without? No. Super confused. So we saw it with the old ts config. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to do a git this is a bigger, like I want to backpedal right now to IPFS HTTP client over here, get this weird fetch thing out of here and kind of work with this, what appears to be a fairly standard tool in the IPFS ecosystem. That would be rad. Interesting. This one is called JS IPFS. Anyway, I want to play with this tool. Now I'm confused. Whatever. We have a bigger problem here if we can't actually execute the TypeScript compiler to generate JavaScript. That's going to apply no matter what library we're using. So let's fix that problem first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to git stash the tsconfig file because we made some changes to that, you might remember. And totally forgetting that you can't stash just a single file. So I'm going to git add package and source. You can only stash all changes together as a bundle, which I don't want to do. Do I want to check these changes in? It's sort of a snapshot of. Normally, I don't think I would check these in, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Source app. Steven says it's a mono repo that has all the packages. Noting my confusion that IPFS JS IPFS has all these, is a very large repo that's been around for a long time that has, this says IPFS implementation in JavaScript. Cool. So it has in it a JavaScript client that we can hopefully grab. Or sorry, an HTTP client, which we can grab and use. All right, let's go ahead and check these guys in. Trying out JS IPFS fetch. Probably not going this way. All right, and now we should have a single file left out. We do. I'm going to do a git stash to stash that. And now I'm going to run npm run generate. Try the right way for now. There we go. So it is now failing, but it's actually running the TSC compiler. That doesn't mean it's writing to the right place, which is a little bit different. Let's go do one more thing, which is let's replace or comment all this stuff out and do a console.log. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Wait. I was editing the app.js file, which I hope I wasn't doing that the whole time. I don't think I was. I think it just, the TypeScript compiler put it over there. Anyway, so console.log, hello worlds, and run generate. Okay, cool. So it is successfully compiling and executing these files, copying them over. If I go to app.js, it should be hello worlds. Yep. Okay, cool. So that is all running. And then for whatever reason, something about the changes that I made to, maybe the root dir is missing from the other one. Something about the changes I made to the tsconfig caused the TypeScript compiler to stop actually compiling my stuff. So we're going to do a git stash pop. That brings in the change tsconfig.json. Does it have an outdir? Yes, it does. The one other, what other thing did I see? Source dir? Is that what the change was? Git diff. Source. I'm pretty sure it was source. Root dir. Root dir. Root dir. Root. Oh, not in change here. Root dir is equal source. I don't know if that really matters. Okay, and let's see. Now let's run the npm run generate. Wait a second. Cool. Yeah. No, not cool. Good. Okay, so for whatever reason, it's still running. It is not actually writing to that directory. Freaking annoying. Okay, that was the end of one. Pomodoro pretty much wasted on JS IPFS fetch and TypeScript errors. I'm going to take one last 5-minute break. We'll come back around to this and try to knock it all out in a single Pomodoro. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. I might even look for a starter application or a starter like starter TypeScript repo in JS IPFS and see if we can start there so that I'm not fighting TS config options. Oh, gosh, what a waste. Okay, 5-minute breaks. I'll be back in a few minutes. See you guys. Alrighty, welcome back to our final Pomodoro of today's work session. Seems on the Pomodoro break, normally on a Pomodoro break, I would take a stroll outside in my yard and just kind of look up at the sky and walk away from the computer. But I was so frustrated with this last Pomodoro of getting kind of bogged down in JS IPFS fetch and TypeScript weirdness and all that stuff that I spent this Pomodoro break actually searching and looking at the IPFS HTTP client repo that Steven recommended. And I think I even found a TypeScript starter repo. And so I think we're going to have a very productive last 25 minutes. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So let's start our last 25-minute timer here. And yeah, so the thing that Steven mentioned is this IPFS HTTP client library has really excellent docs and in terms of like the API for usage. It also has this module uses Node.js, so we can definitely install this locally and use this. There's a nice little example. Yeah, so this should hopefully do the things we want to do. I also found a one of their example apps is using IPFS with TypeScript. There's a template. There's things in here, and so my plan is to actually start over from this little starter app and then see how far we can get in the next 25 minutes. So here we go. So, one of the things I love about this is I was reading it. They had this, you can actually, they tell you what you can make sure that things are running properly by uncommenting out a line or commenting out a line. No, uncommenting a line and then running npm test, and they show you exactly what you should see. Like, hey, if this is working, then your TypeScript setup is working properly, which is pretty cool that they have that. Because as we've seen and as I've been playing with the TypeScript, getting the configuration and everything right is a large part of the battle and is really frustrating. Interesting. I'm looking at their stuff. So what I think I want to do is steal their TypeScript config, and let's see what's in their package JSON. They are depending on IPFS-core, which is different than this IPFS. Interesting. All right, cool. Well, let's start ripping this thing to shreds, shall we? Let's see. So do npm uninstall IPFS. Oh, you're really gonna make me type it out? Really? When I can just type npm I? Sure. Okay. Uninstall that, and then we're also going to uninstall this. That. And then let's see what their script looks like. We'll grab those two things. And we're going to do an npm install of IPFS-core. All right, go back here. We've already grabbed their tsconfig, I believe. No, I've not grabbed their tsconfig yet. Grab that. Raw. There's that. And then, let's see, in source, they have a simple TypeScript application. I think I'm actually going to start by copying these things in and start working with, I'm going to go ahead and rename this to main .TypeScript. Alrighty, and we're going to need our own little public directory, which will be great. And I'm going to delete on app.js, delete the out directory. Let's see, how does their thing run? Well, let's do an npm npm run test. Let's see what happens here. Right. And it tries to compile this. Let's drop their code in. Do I need that image file? I don't think so. I don't see it reading a local directory. I noticed they had like an image or something in there. All right, great. Drop this in. And make sure this doesn't actually try to like add something to IPFS. It doesn't look like it. File SID. Back over here. Make sure there's not any other weirdness going on in here that's going to make things work. Now the image is for GitHub. Okay, all this looks good. So let's do a quick npm run test. Okay. Everything looks good there. And then we're going to comment out the TS expect error. Is that what it was? Line 16. Yep. So I commented out that and run test one more time. And we should see this error that we see over here on the left. What? If you remove TS expect error and run npm test, you should see the following output. Npm test. Am I doing the wrong thing? I think run test and test are functionally equivalent. Oh. Wrong. Not functionally equivalent. Cool. Declaration expected. All right, good. So then this line looks weird to me. That TS expect error, shouldn't there be like a quote around it or something? Whatever. Error thing looks all right. I swear that looks weird, but anyway. So we're going to go ahead and delete some of this stuff. Is there an npm run though? Wait. Clean. Source. What does a tsconfig do about? All right, let me comment that out. That's a weird. Oh, if you remove it. Sorry. I just now understood what that was saying. It wasn't saying uncommented. It was saying actually remove the thing. And there we go. That's what we expected to see. All righty. So bring that. This is okay. This makes a lot more sense now. Like, oh, as weird as like a line of JavaScript, but it's a comment to the compiler saying ignore this. All right. So npm test should run successfully. Npm run. So how does this actually run then? I guess run test does like runs the code while also testing it at the same time. Okay, whatever. So let's go back over to here. I'm surprised we didn't see any console logs. Like, do I need like a verbose or something passed to this? Hey, there we go. That is definitely verbose. npm info using, oops. Why don't these console logs run? All right. Must be missing something here. Installation and running example. Did the run. All right, we got 15 minutes left here. Things should work. Not all APIs are implemented. Huh. Yeah, I would think there would be like a package JSON thing to actually run this sucker. But again, I'm just gonna have to assume that it's running via npm run test, and we'll just rock with that. Okay, so then what do we want to do here? Let's go write some code comments. Const file equals await node path. So this is like making a file, then adding the file to oh, here we go. Node.add. Interesting. So this npm run test is not running it, that's for sure. So what's happening here is we've got npm running, and okay, think. Here we go. So this node right here is an actual IPFS node. We're grabbing create from IPFS core and adding to that node locally. So this isn't exactly the HTTP client case that I would want, but that's okay. We've got a running TypeScript project here. Let's look at HTTP client upload file. I'm going to say JS IPFS HTTP client file. Nope. Well, let's assume that maybe some of the docs here have import the module usage in a web browser, custom headers, global timeouts, files. Here we go. IPFS add. There we go. Regular files API. IPFS LS. An IPFS path. Path can be of type SID. There we go. We'll return an iterable object to be able to iterate over it. Here's an example. That's what we want right there. So this will be our main function. Let me delete all this stuff. I gotta figure out how to run this dang thing. Const SID. We have the SID of our file over in Drive. We'll grab that. We'll still need, let me see. Copy those. You're still going to need an IPFS thing. So node, I think we'll need IPF node, wait. Copy. Read file is passing in the node. Okay, so await create will do it. So then we'll do all right. Oops. IPFS. And type SID. Cool. Okay, so run this thing. Oh, this example is going to be Do an npm run test and see how things look. Again, this VS Code should be running that npm run test. So then how do we actually run the thing here? Package JSON, scripts clean. npm tsc run. Surely this is the way it works, right? Where you just run it as opposed to compile it. Git transforms TypeScript into JavaScript and then directly execute it without pre-compiling. This is accomplished by hooking nodes modules. Yeah, this seems like what we would want to do. Let's see. Let's install that, and then we'll make another one. Is there a default script? Yeah, like that. Thanks, Copilot. All right. npm run now? Is that run? Ah, great. Okay. So let's see. Console. That appeared to work. Console log. Starting IPFS. Sure, whatever. Now we should see a starting IPFS thing. Dadgummit. What the heck? It seems to be... Oh, because main isn't getting executed. Duh. There we go. Oh, interesting. That should have actually done what we want. Let's see. npm run default. Let's sit here and wait for a second this time. So this, we should see it start logging these file paths out in a second here. Because this is actually doing an IPFS-LS on this SID. I don't know how long this actually should take. I would assume it's faster than this, but I don't know. Starting IPFS. I'm also noticing, oh, there we go. Boom! Woohoo! There we go, there's 3 files. Ah, this took way too long to get to this point, but now that we're here, I'm so happy. Okay, so then we're gonna wanna grab these files locally. Oh my goodness. So excited. Okay. Got 6-7 minutes here. So we'll await. Is there a files.get? That seems weird. That'd be wonderful if there was. Let's come over here, files. Wait, multi-files? Multi-hash, multi-adder. Aside from, no, that's not what we want. Running the daemon. Yeah, that's, we're very close, very, very close. HTTP client library. Where were the docs that I was just at that had? All right, keep it going. Here we are. Maybe no. Got way too many windows open. Here we go. Okay, cool. So this gives us, this is the IPFS-LS. Gives us the CIDs. What did I get there? Weird. So it gave me, what did I output? The path. Okay, gotcha. So then I get these files. Each yielded object is of this form, and we did the path here. So what I think I want is the SIDs. And then we're going to do a file get of each one of those. So let's go scroll up here. Fetch a file or entire directory that is addressed by a valid SID path. All right, let's try this. Let's do four. You know what? We'll do this. Let's do these one at a time. So what we'll do is grab the file's content. What we want to do is transform the markdown into HTML and cat. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, no, that's right, I think. Way to go. I think we want to use marked for this. Man, I love Copilot sometimes using marked. Yep, that was it. We're gonna need to install marked npm. Oh, this didn't end. Why didn't the thing stop running? I don't understand the nature of how npm package.json runs. Oh, I've got 2 minutes left. Come on. Npm install marked. That'll be our HTML generator for now. And for right now, we'll just output that HTML. All right, let's see if this works. Ding, 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 ding. Took a long time to read from IPFS, though. That was kind of interesting. We may want to do some sort of like local caching or something. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, but a local caching would work really well with these content addressed things. Could store them locally via public. Oh, it's going, it's going. Type error. It's not a function. Marked. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me get the. I'm assuming how marked works. We're probably going to need to destructure this somehow or something like that. But yeah, marked JavaScript docs. Because that grabbed the whole library as opposed to an individual function from the library. Npm install. That's the CLI. There's your browser. There's Node. Hey, there you go. I'm right. Ah! Stephen pointed out that I'm muted a second ago, or whenever that happened. I think what happened was my... Yep, sure enough, my little microphone died. So need to make sure I plug that in. I ran last Friday's session and this Friday's session, and now I know that microphone only has less than 4 hours worth of battery for it. So I'll definitely charge that up next time. Fortunately, I have a backup microphone, so we're good to go. But dadgummit, I don't know how long you guys weren't hearing me, but we're really close here. We've got these async generators. So what does marked give me when what is the HTML here? Let's see, usage. No, that's where we already are. I want documents, or I'm sorry, the docs. So we're what? This page is like super small. Object async generator. Advanced usage options. Mark.use. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay, Steve says we missed the last 2 minutes. Whoops! We've had a couple of bloopers on this. That's weird. So a console log here, it actually is parsing properly. So something about this async generator means that it's... Maybe I need to do like an await there, because it's not actually done parsing. Await. This is a total guess, by the way. And stop that, run it again. We are gosh darn close to getting this working. And then it's like, once we have this working, it's like append these HTML files together, stick them in, embed them inside an HTML wrapper, and then we have our little microblog that's getting generated from IPFS. And then we can make this. The next thing to do would be to make this like CID a configuration file, like in maybe using .env, like make it an environment variable that can be configured, and then anybody could like run this little static site generator over a directory. Golly day, still async generator. What is going on here? Parse the file, yo. Let me make sure. Let's get the content and make sure that that actually, whoops, is working correctly. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong here with, maybe it's toString. Ah, okay. So cat, Steve says cat is returning something different. An async, yep, an async iterable. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Buffer.concat chunks. Gotcha. Well, then let's just do get. I assumed when I glanced at the docs that cat was actually an alias for get, but that makes sense. This also returns an async iterable, by the way. So we're going to have to do, once we get a file, we'll need to iterate over the chunks of the file. The content will be a buffered list. Yep. Async iterable. A great example. Ooh, cool. Let me see if they have a... Huh. Interesting. Okay. I think this example makes sense. All right, I'm gonna go 5 more minutes. I keep saying 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. This is seriously the last 5 minutes. Not happening after this. You get 5 extra minutes since you had 2 minutes of muted content for the same price of free. All right, grab the file's content. So we know right here the content that we're getting back. I'm going to unmuck up this stuff. This is, we need to iterate over the content. Looking at add to a buffer list. What? I don't know. I know I'm mixing imports right here, but I'm just going to quickly paste it in. And I'm not sure that I have that import. I guess I do. What is BL buffer list? I guess that's a JavaScript native thingy. Const content. And do I need to do like this? Because TypeScript? Something like that. Oh, I can't redefine content there. Silly. So this will be, it should be file, not content. And we're going to do get here. Oh, I see why they have. Okay, let's see. This is the file content. See, this isn't, okay, strictly speaking, get is returning an iterable, like a file buffer. No. Returns an async iterable object that yields objects representing the files. And then we're going to create a single string. Whatever. We'll go back to the old naming. Content. Trying to optimize on namings right now is not the most important thing. Guess that types that for me automatically. Whatever. And then the next thing that we'll do is for each chunk, iterate over the actual content. Yep. For const file ls. All right, we're gonna do this. File entry. I gotta rename these things. They're driving me kind of crazy here. Content. And this should be file. Am I looking at the right? This is get. Yeah. Okay. File paths. There's an IPFS get. It's file. File content. File await IPFS get. Async iterable does not have that thing. Interesting. Content append, and then content to string. All right, we'll try that. I'm assuming that if I iterate over this async iterable, that each of these things, well, we'll find out shortly, won't we? Boop-a-doo. I think there might be something wrong with that example, actually. If that truly returns an async iterable. All right, last run, and then we will stop here and check in. It either works or it doesn't. Moment of truth. Have a feeling it does not work. Hey, what do you know? There's some mess here. I'm guessing that's like IPFS metadata, but it kind of works. So what's going on here is, yeah, that would be the CID, and then there's this other random stuff. And then there is the actual content of the file, something we want to say. So in iterating over, I need to find the exact thing that I need to pull off of this. I'm not sure what entry it is or whatever that we want to pull off. So anyway, we're really, really close to having this working. Wow. Okay. Wow. Whew. Well, thanks for hanging out with me on Coding with Jess. We are wrapped up for today's coding session. We made, a fair amount of progress. Definitely there was some frustrating stuff in the middle. We've got our Mumbler thing that is writing files to the IPFS. We can now fetch files from IPFS using the HTTP client in JavaScript, and we are transforming the content of that into HTML that will then generate a little blog. So I think ultimately, like, we're really, really close to having what we want in being able to, this little simple static site generator that we can then add features to. So I will be doing this again 1 week from now, 1 week minus 2 hours from now, and I'll probably be working on the same thing, but I'll post on Twitter what I'm planning on working on and let people know on my newsletter. So if you want to get notified when I'm doing this kind of thing, I'll probably do some infrequent streams that are out of band of the Wednesday stream. So if you want to get notified, feel free to hit subscribe. Thanks so much for hanging out, Stephen. Thanks for all the help in the chat. It was super duper duper helpful, and it's way more fun to work on this alongside others, which is why I do these live streams. So we'll talk to you later. See ya.